So I thought that was the only thing I wanted to talk about tonight, but I realized I've got notes because I watched King Richard last night. Was it last night? Yeah, I think it was last night. And I did a watch along, so I had all this commentary while the movie was playing, and I tried to record it, but I realized HBO Max actually has like a firewall up that prevented the image from displaying on a screen record, on a screen capture. So if I upload that, you'll actually just see a blank screen, so it's not a proper watch along. Now, maybe if I take the time to edit this, and maybe I actually will because it's like worthwhile and there's a lot of points that I want to like highlight and I want you to actually like see these things. Um yeah, so King Richard right now is available on HBO Max. So if you have an HBO Max subscription, I would highly encourage you to watch it. King Richard is a film that tells the story really of Venus Williams and Serena Williams, who are historic tennis players. If you don't know who they are, please look them up. I'll edit this and include pictures and audio and video just to actually make the story a little bit more clear. So they are renowned tennis players, and a lot of people I think who are close with the family are familiar with their father, Richard, and how important he was in terms of their success. Okay. And there were so many themes that were highlighted in this film. I haven't actually, and I don't know, I haven't watched any film reviews about it. And unfortunately, I haven't really read that many think pieces about it. So maybe I will just like write one, and submit that. But, wow. There were issues of social class that came up. Okay. There were a lot of issues around black female childhood that I think maybe some people might overlook in the film that I think are important. There are also, some themes around work-life balance and sportsmanship that are lessons that I too have had to learn in my life that pertain more to longevity and not just like instant stardom, that I think that people should take away from this, and also like strategies for greatness. So we're going to unpack some of those, but I made some little notes for myself at the top here, because King Richard was nominated for a couple of different awards at the Oscars, but Will Smith did win an Oscar for portraying King Richard in the film. So I think it was like the Best Actor award or something. I'm not sure which award it was. I'm not positive. But this was his first when the movie though is actually incredible, and I think that Will Smith did a wonderful job of bringing this character to life. And this is a real person, right? This guy, Serena and Venus's father, they are alive now, right? So the movie is wonderful. Now, in the beginning of the Oscars, Beyonce was also nominated in one of the in one of the categories for recording soundtracks. So she wrote a song, I think it was called Be Alive or something about alive. And she performed, she was the opening act at the Oscars for her performance of the song Be Alive, which was included in the soundtrack for the film King Richard. Now, Beyonce in, oh my God, Beyonce fashion, she sent in a video recording of this performance. So she was not physically present at the Oscars because B don't got the time. So Beyonce, in this woman has her hand on the heart of the culture. It might actually be Blue Ivy, but whoever it is, okay, that team stays with their like pinky finger on the fucking pulse of the culture at all moments, okay? Like they just do no wrong. So here's what Beyonce does. Literally, she films herself performing with all black women with French braids and beads in an ode to Venus Williams, who went out in the film in her for one of her first historic matches that she ends up winning. I think it was like her first main match. She had these like cornrow braids, but they had these like white beads in it. It was very like cool, and like it was just something very specific to her style. Like that Venus started the thing with the braids and the beads, and so all of the women who were performing with Beyoncé had beaded braids just like Venus Williams. So can we talk about the costume and the imagery there? And then she goes further, and if you do not know the music video Fye Fye, that has been an incredible musical moment for black people in 2021, where Toben Nwigwe has been performing all over the country, and I think he's taken this international at this point. So Fye Fye is this, like, you know, it's almost like a black anthem, and in the music video and in all of his performances, he wears this like lime, everyone in the video, and there's like, it's like all black people in the video with like natural hairstyles, and they've all just got this like, it's not even like lime green, it's like a cream green color, but everyone's wearing it. There's no logos, there's no stripes. This is, everyone's in this solid like cream green that Toben designed. And so this is the video, and he's singing the song. He's got his wife and his children in the video, right? So Beyoncé, in an ode to that, everyone is wearing this cream lime green color, and it's just like Fye Fye, right? And then she takes it a step further, okay? And she performs the song in Compton, in a neighborhood that these women grew up in. So Venus and the film King Richard is a story that starts in Compton, California. So she starts her performance by saying, "Where are we? Where are we? Compton, Compton," and everyone's like, well, not, I'm like freaking out. I've already taken in the costume, and I'm like, oh my God, she's incredible, you know? So if you also are not familiar with this, obviously, oh, okay, so she's in Compton, but she's also on a tennis court, right? Because why? Venus and Serena Williams practiced on this historic tennis court, right? And to take it a step further, she's incredible. Like, Beyonce is going into the Genius Book of World Records. It's just, I mean, it's every single performance is a freaking masterpiece when you actually unpack the significance of all of it. Okay, but let's keep going here. So if you were unaware, all through the coronavirus, Beyonce's proteges, Halle Bailey and Chloe Bailey, who form Chloe and Halle, the group, have been performing on these tennis courts. Okay, they've been putting on costumes, just singing their hearts out on the tennis court this entire time through coronavirus. So it was just this layered performance that had all this like historical and cultural context, and obviously she's like Queen Bee over here being extra fabulous, and it was incredible. Okay, so I just had to say that. Please watch this performance. It will blow your mind like all of the other Beyonce performances. The song is incredible. It's just, when you put it all together, you've got the music video, you've got the song, you've got black excellence on screen. Now, I'm only going to bring this point in. We're moving on. I'm only going to bring this point in for contrast. So there are basketball players who are the sons of this guy named Lavar Ball. Lavar Ball is a biracial semi-black male who I believe at one point was a basketball player. I'm not really sure of his story now. Like, I don't know the whole story, but I do know that he has children, and his children are now pro basketball players, I believe. But when they were in the process of making decisions about what it would look like for them to go pro, I think he either wanted his children to accept a certain amount of money during their collegiate years, or I can't remember if he like bypassed college for his kids altogether and just sent them international pro, and then they were so good internationally that then they were drafted to the NBA. I can't remember how this whole network spiral happened, but there was some like kind of like non-traditional path that he took to get his sons to go into the NBA pro, and now they are. Okay. But so let's keep going with this. In some interviews, like Lavar Ball talks about how he's done all of these things. He had all of these training tactics for his children in order to ensure that they had incredible work ethic and were able to hone their talent, simply because he knew that there were other people, mostly, and this is his own words, poor black people who did not have the same opportunity that his sons had, and that they were, because they were poor and scrapping to be in the NBA, then they should, or they were willing to do more and work harder. So he was trying to push his children to do well, even though they were upper middle class and already had a lot of access. And I just think that like that story had been shared around quite frequently, and I do think that there are people in the middle class who sort of feel like their positions are threatened by people who socioeconomically have less, because like we're all fighting for the same thing. And I think the one thing that people fail to realize is just how much room there is at the table. If you have talent and you have work ethic, you will succeed. You will. There's not a limited number of seats, but sometimes like you actually just aren't as talented as you believe that you are. So if you're going for like some coveted seat that everyone in the world, like a lot of people want to be in the NBA, so in terms of like realistic chances, right, everyone obviously is not going to go pro in the NBA. But if you simply want to play like basketball as a lifelong career, I do feel like there's other things that you can do. You can be like a sports analyst, a sports reporter. You could write a sports column. You could have a podcast around sports. There are so many things, right? Like where you don't have to say like, oh my God, okay, so I didn't make it to the NBA. Now I'm nothing. And I don't have any like life skills, and I'm not a successful person. You could be a coach. There are so many things, right, that you can do if you don't manage to make it to the NBA. And I think that this story with King Richard does a great job of showing, first of all, what a clear path to extreme success looks like, but also a lot of the other intricate parts of work ethic and sportsmanship that are critical for success. And I want to break some of those down here. So here's one thing I think a lot of people don't understand about the Williams family. I didn't actually know this. I thought that Venus Williams and Serena Williams were the only children in their family, and that their family dedicated their entire lives to raising and supporting them to become tennis superstars. That's actually not true. There are 5 children in that family total, and Venus and Serena were the youngest 2 children. And when Richard when Richard started to become interested in tennis as a sport and realized that he could potentially raise superstars in the sport of tennis, he pretty much planned, not pretty much, he did. He wrote out this 7-year plan once his children turned, I think it was like 10 or something, to ensure their path to superstardom in tennis. Okay, so like he wrote out the plan and then he executed on the plan. Every year there were certain goals in place, and he executed the plan. So he had two more children with the specific intent for them to become international tennis stars. That was the plan. So that's a thing. Like he wrote it down. He was very meticulous. Like he knew what the goals were, and it was gonna happen, right? But let's talk about like where they started, and I'm talking about where the family started, because this entire story, at every point in the story, um, entire Williams family is a part of the journey. And it's something that I feel like we don't really see specifically in mainstream media, but the film does a really good job of detailing the backstory of how the entire family was actually there the whole time. And also everyone had different goals and positions to play in that family to ensure the success of everyone. So this family, they were a lower middle class family living in Compton, California, in a primarily black neighborhood. So I think it's important, though, to note here that although they were lower middle class, they were living in a single family home. So they were not in a sort of public housing situation. They were not living in an apartment of any sort. They were living in a single family home, and both parents were working parents. They shared like a vehicle. They also shared a parenting schedule. So, it's like when the mom would get off of work, she would go take on her shift parenting the kids. And then, the dad, before he went to because he had two jobs, before he went to his second job, he would go practice with the girls at the local tennis court. And he was doing quite a lot of things, like where he would go to country clubs and, pick up balls that were just laying around so that they were free. And then he would take those back home with his children and practice there. So those are some things I feel like people might kind of brush past, but those are things that happened. Okay, so the other thing, the mother is a nurse. So to be clear here, it didn't seem like she was a CNA. She was like a registered nurse. So that is a profession that requires a bachelor's degree. And if you are familiar with nursing programs are actually pretty competitive. So in terms of intellect, like her mother definitely had some smarts. It's not like super easy to get into a BSN program. You have to take like, inorganic chemistry, organic chemistry, microbiology, anatomy, physiology, nutrition, and you have to do pretty well psychology, sociology, some general English classes, and then there are a whole bunch of like clinical courses that you take in phlebotomy or drawing blood and things like that, so that you will actually be able to perform your job as a nurse. And I'm not sure, I didn't really go into like her specialty. I'm not sure if she was like a geriatric nurse for old people, if she was like a nurse, an oncology nurse for cancer patients, an OBGYN nurse, a critical care. Like they didn't really get into the specifics of what kind of nurse she was, but she was a nurse. And then I also want to talk about there were some in the story. And we're going to talk about in the beginning of the story before we start to get into like the training of the tennis training of the girls. They're training the entire story, but before we kind of get into hardcore training, it paints a picture of what their society is like, what their day-to-day interactions in their community is like. And I think that those are important, because all too often when we hear these stories of glitz and glam and fame and stuff and recognition, we see people who are now well off in Hollywood, or even, I don't know why people would think I'm doing that great. Like I just have an apartment, right? And like some of you guys probably like walk past my apartment. It's an expensive apartment, but like it is an apartment nonetheless. And if you made the amount of money to afford it, you too could just live in this apartment. So it's just more about you getting to a place where you make that much money. And I'm not making like crazy amounts of money. Like I'm very middle class. Okay. Like, so this is, I'm not doing that well. And also, to be clear, a lot of your favorite superstars on the internet are making less money than me. So checks are checks. Wherever you get your check, whatever your job is, having a job is real, and you can afford your cost of living with a job. That's straight up. Okay, so let's go back for a second because there's a lot of supporting cast members. Oh, if you're looking at my wet shirt here, it was wash day, so I washed my braids. I actually need to do it more like every night, but I've been doing it like twice or three times a week. So I shampoo my braids and I go, I do all that, and I put some conditioner in and then I wash it out. So it's just drying right now, and that's why the water is dripping down my shirt. Also, this is funny. It's a Goldman shirt. It's a Goldman Sachs shirt that I got when I spent time in New York at Goldman Sachs. I told you guys I think the CEO's hot. That's why I'm sporting the shirt. Hey, I forgot guy's name, but yes, you guys know who I'm talking about. He's very cute. So moving on. So some of the supporting cast members in the story are kind of like, they're regular community members, but they're kind of like street community members who are, we'll call them protectors of the neighborhood, but it's more like they might be involved in kind of like drugs and criminality, but they, over the course of the film, they seem to gain respect for Richard, but in the beginning, they actually have no respect for Richard. So one incident that happens in the beginning of the film, oh, spoiler, this is full of spoilers. I'm totally breaking down the story in terms of social interactions. So if you're like, don't tell me what happens, this is not the breakdown for you. So, not obviously, but Richard and Venus and Serena and also the other three daughters, after school, they get into their van and they go to their local park in Compton, California. So Compton is like the hood, right? So, they go to the park in Compton that has a tennis court. Now, what you see them doing when they get there is they spend like 30 minutes or something sweeping the court. Like he has a broom that he brings and he sweeps the court, and they put up like inspirational signs for each other. So the sisters are doing that. Venus is doing that. They put all of their balls in the proper place. So they spend like 30 minutes or 45 minutes just setting up the park, right? Because there's like a whole bunch, there's like trash and stuff. They're sweeping, they're cleaning, they're putting up signs, they're gathering balls, all type of stuff. And then they start to practice, and then after practice, now they have to clean the entire thing up again. It's quite a lot of discipline, and they do this every single day, every day. Now, when we first jump into, in the beginning of the film, so they're doing this, they're cleaning up. Now, one of the sisters, the oldest sister, her name is Thandi. Her whole dream is to just be a doctor. So while Venus and Serena are practicing, all the other sisters are either cleaning up balls or they're studying. So Thandi is in the corner and she's like just reading her book and doing her homework. She's studying. Okay, so as they get ready to like clean up, or it looks like this training period is coming to an end. It looks like it's maybe like 5:30, so it's still light out and everything, but they're on the tennis court, and the basketball court is like very close in proximity to the tennis court. So one of the guys, who's playing basketball in the basketball court sees Thandi, and he kind of like reaches through the wire and he's like, hey girl, what's up? Oh, you're so fine. Let me talk to you. What's your name? Now she just kind of like looks over at him, and then she like looks back in her book. At this point in time, Thandi is like a 15-year-old girl. She's a child. That's like middle school. She's not even in high school yet. She's a middle schooler. This is a grown-ass man. He looks like he might be like 26 or 27. He's like playing basketball with all of his, there's a whole game going on. So he's got like a ton of other people to talk to. Instead, he trots over to this 15-year-old girl who has a book in her hand and is studying, and her father is right next to her on the court. It's just like pedophile is real. Like, and okay, so we can unpack that situation for a minute, but I swear, like, I started screaming at my television when I saw this, because I was like, man, Some girls don't even have their fathers there to protect them for whatever reason. We know that fatherlessness is like a real issue in the Black community. And so instead of these guys being like empathetic to that and trying to protect anyone, they are just literally comfortable being even more predators, right? They're out there literally preying on children. Like, she can't even study in the park. In her local park, she can't do that. Why? Because niggers are literally trying to take her innocence and youth away before she can even grow up. She's in middle school. Middle school. It's a fucking grown-ass man. And then, the weird part about that is, like, the other men around him, they were just kind of, like, co-signing it, you know? They were just, like, watching it. They were like, yeah. Oh, yeah, she's really pretty. Like, nigga, what? She's a middle schooler. Like, you guys are awful. Like, it's just, there's no hope. I'm telling you. I said it before and I'll say it again. Niggers are a dying breed. Just kill them off. Like, it's just, it's a lot. That's ridiculous. Anyway, so Richard sees this. He says, Thandi, go get the balls, go clean up. Go to the truck right now. So she does that. All of the sisters like run to the truck. They close the door. They're like waiting for their dad. So he does the last bit of cleaning up the balls, and then he walks over to the guy and he's like, hey man, you know, like I told you before, that's my daughter. That's a child. She's only 15. Like, please don't talk to her like that. She's not interested in you. She's just here to help her sisters practice. And then he, like, walks away. Now, this guy seems like the guy who he said this to, it feels like he's emasculated in some way. These are just words. He didn't even say it in, like a violent way. He was just like, that's, like, the way that I said it. That's the way he said it. The guy follows him back, you know, and then he says, like, you know, what did you say to me? Do you have something to say to me? And he's like, I already said it to you. I said that that's my child. Don't talk to her like that. You know? And then the guy, he's like, no, like, I'll say what I want to say. What did you say to me? And then he, like, socks him in the face. He just socks him. And it was just, like, and then all of them collectively come together, like, because there was a group of guys. They start, like, kicking him. And they're just like, ha, 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 ha. Then they all run away. They're like, don't tell us what to do in our fucking court. Right? And so then Richard grabs his tennis balls or whatever. And then he goes to his van. And then on the drive home, he has to explain to his children, like, what happened. And he's like, you know, those guys are thugs. And, like, that's just what they do. But, you know, you guys are lucky because at least you have a father here who's willing to protect you. Like, when I was younger, I didn't have anyone to protect me. I had to fight the administrators at my school. I had to fight the white police officers, the KKK. I had to fight everybody. I had to fight the local criminals. Every single place I turned, I had to fight. And I've made that other video before where I inserted the clip from the Solange album, right, which was Matthew Knowles, who's Beyonce's father, who was also talking about how he always had to fight. And honestly, I feel like I'm in the same place where it's like at every year, this is 2022, I'm still fighting. Just for existence. It's like, it hasn't stopped. Like, when will people just get it through their fucking heads that, like, black people are fucking humans in this country and, like, we need to be treated as such? Like, I don't know. It's not like some foreign concept because people realize how to treat other humans, but it really does feel like they are actively choosing not to have that same respect for black people and black women and black children because they are, I don't know, to me, what it points to is them not being the humans, right? And this is where, you know, I'll bring it back to that Abba and Preach segment where I explained, like, there are a lot of black people who don't see white people as humans just because everything that's happened historically has painted them as such. They have chosen to identify themselves as non-human, and now we have all chosen to acknowledge it. Okay, anyway. So, that entire situation in the car, it was very frustrating to watch, and it was just also very real because it, in one sense, it showed how privileged, like, Venus and Serena Williams are just to have a father who was, like, really protecting them from so much and keeping them on this schedule and keeping them focused, you know, on their goals, which they definitely did accomplish. And in the beginning of the film, before we see them driving to the tennis court, they are handing out yellow page books to other people in the community. I guess this is like some little job that they have or whatever. And one of the neighbors, she's like a black woman. To me, she looks like a biracial black woman. So they hand her the yellow page book, and she says, like, you know, your father is working you way too hard. You need to tell him to stop working you this hard. You know, that's what she says. And so, you know, the girls are like, and they just like run away. So then King Richard walks across the street, and he's like, look, I told you don't talk to these girls. Don't tell them anything. You are not their parent. Mind your own business. And she's like, but you're working them too hard. Why don't you just let them be children? And then he tells her, he's like, well, why don't you worry about raising your own child? And he makes a statement like, isn't one of your daughters like a crack whore over there on East 14th? And it was, okay, when he said that, it was a very sad but honest moment for me, because it pointed out the reality that is what's happening in the black community. Like, a lot of daughters are being lost to the streets. And it's not really confusing about how it's happening, because there's this like domineering nature of poor black males who are just honestly selling the bodies of women. And they're selling women into prostitution by preaching love. It's just, I don't know. Like, and I can't even, maybe I'll make another video about this, but one of my managers from last year, she was dating like 3 different pimps, and it was just like, it was so normal. It was just like, wow, we have like normalized, like, pimping is normal in the black community right now for some people. And I don't think it's just in the black community. Pimping is like a normal part of society. And it's no surprise why so many of these men have no respect for women, and they have no role models, and they have no future, because nobody retires as a pimp, sir. That's, anyway. But he basically was making fun of that, and you know, it was a comeback, but it was also just kind of like, man, this woman actually comes in again, because she ends up calling social services on the family. And so the cops show up to the home, you know, and they're like, oh, like, and so Richard has to explain. He's like, I have these kids on a very tenuous schedule. You're not going to come in here and tell me that I'm like hurting my children or I'm doing anything awful to my children. I'm trying to get them to succeed. So if you have a problem with success, then take me in. But you also need to have a problem with all the other shit happening in this community, you know? So obviously the social services leaves, and then the mother, so Venus's mother, has to walk across the street and address this woman and be like, this is the last time I'm going to come over here. Like, I've never had to come over here before, and I'm never going to come over here again. But she was basically like, you need to leave my family alone. Like, we don't fuck with you. Like, just leave us alone. That's what she was saying. And it's like, that is also something I've had to combat too in my life, where there are other people in the black community. It's a lot of the biracials. They really have a problem, because instead of addressing their own like lack of mastery or skill or success, they're just more willing to like tear you down. They will start to be hypercritical of things that you have said and done. Like, they will start to call you crazy, all type of shit, just because like you aren't doing what they're doing and you are not in community with them. Because in their minds, they only see success as this like mutual group sharing experience with the people that they are familiar and kind with. So like, if you are not familiar and kind with them, they believe that you do not deserve or have the access to success. And I saw that in this female character, and I thought it was useful to break that down, just to be aware of people like that, because I too have come across people like her. So all skin folk and kinfolk, that's real shit. Okay, so then we get to a point where, okay, so now Richard has been training with Venus and Serena in the local Compton parks, and so he also has a night job where it looks like he's like a security guard. So while he's working the shift, he's reading all of these tennis magazines. So he's got a subscription to like 4 or 5 different tennis magazines. He reads over the magazines to see like to understand certain things around techniques. He takes notes on it and then he practices. So when he goes to the court with his children, he's like teaching them the things that he's learned from the magazines. Like he never had any training on his own. He just read the magazines and then modeled what he read in the magazines with his kids, and they just kept doing it over and over again. And so he makes these like flyers of he prints out some little infographics about the 2 girls and what they have been doing and all their stats and stuff and how they've been practicing every day. And then so he goes around to other people in the LA area who are prominent in tennis. So these are like coaches, other players who have retired, who are now coaches and who are training the up and coming tennis players. And he knows who these people are because he got their names from the magazine, right? And so it also says in the magazine, it'll be like, okay, Bob Jones trains at the Orange County Country Club. So what Richard does is he goes to the country club. He calls the country club and he says, hey, I'm trying to get a meet. Can I talk to Bob Jones, and then like, because Bob Jones and it's not just him, I just made up that name, but other people, coaches, right, who are training at these country clubs, they do take on students, but like the students that they take on, it's like a paid training program, in the same way that if you go take a ballet class or something, how you pay the studio and then the studio finds talented dancers who have trained in other places, and then if you go to that studio over and over for years, that's how you build up your skill in that field. Like that's how it works in dance, at least, but in other places too. So the big idea here though is Richard is going to all of these country clubs to speak with these professional trainers, but he is trying to pitch sort of like this like economic recovery type of program where he's asking these coaches to train his two daughters for free. And all of the coaches are basically like, no. Like, because it's actually very expensive to get tennis lessons. Like, I don't know how much it might run in Orange County, but I know like in Berkeley, if you want like a private lesson, I think you might be paying like $120 an hour or something like that. It's between like $60 and $200 an hour or something like that. That's every hour. So a pro tip here, like if you do want to sort of play the race card, the I'm economically disadvantaged card, sometimes those coaches will have like financial aid type options where maybe they will offer you training at a discounted rate, like $20 an hour or $10 an hour. He wasn't asking that though. He was asking if they could go for free. Now, I mean, that's a big ass ask, especially when like both of his parents have jobs. So it was, I don't know why he didn't have like no budget at all. Like, I feel like he might have been more successful sooner had he even made a small budget. Like, I have $100 a month that I can put toward the training. Like, I don't think that they would have laughed in his face given all of the other context, like the frequency that they're practicing now, how serious he is about the sport. And like money is money, and I do feel like those coaches probably would have empathized with him and said, okay, I can offer you 1 hour a month, and that at least would have been a start where he would have had something as opposed to nothing. But it was like he was literally approaching them like, I need you to do this for free, which like that's not a good idea. Don't do that. I mean, maybe do that, but if you are failing in your ask of like, I need this shit for free, then offer some money, because typically places will work with you if you have some money. Okay. Anyway, so he does make his rounds to a lot of these coaches, and then he finds like one coach who's like, okay, cool, I would like to meet these girls. And so then the coach comes down to Compton, he sees them play, and he's like, wow, they're really good. But at this particular time in their training or whatever, Venus is the more talented sister. Serena is not as talented yet. And so the coach basically says, I'm only going to train one. I'm only training Venus. So, I mean, and in all honesty, that's like fair, because like, how can you expect someone who trains for a living to like firstly train train one of the sisters, to train two people for free, and then also train someone who's not at the skill level that you kind of need them to be to get to he because that coach is training superstars. Like he's seen before what it looks like to be like a pro type of player. Okay. So this is like a real blow though for the family, because both sisters have been putting in the work all this time. So for Serena to have to realize like, damn, I'm not going to get any training, so now I can't play. What am I going to do? So what happens is like Venus starts her training with this like pro coach. The dad records all the training so that Venus can watch whatever's being said by this pro coach. And the mom, through her own free will, sort of takes on continuing to train Venus. So they continue to go to this Compton court during the same time that Venus is going to the country club and training with that really big coach. And Venus continues to work. And I think that that's something that a lot of people overlook. Sometimes it feels like, oh man, this talent agency didn't select me. I didn't get this really big opportunity that I wanted, and therefore my entire career is over and I have to stop. And I felt like that when I was younger, because there was this like pick me syndrome where I felt like I'm going to show up and I'm going to be the best that I can be. And I think that, like, to be in all honesty, I think in all honesty, I think in a lot of the places I actually was the best. But sometimes being the best isn't enough. It's just not enough. Like, you would think that it was, but there's other things that play in, like nepotism, sometimes colorism. Sometimes it's just more like the people who are conducting the audition, they have a bias in some way, because they're like, oh, but this other kid who, like, I just like their parents more, I want to give them the role. So even though there's like this really talented person here, I don't care about that. Those are all those are real things that happen. And so I think you just have to be aware that if you are pursuing an artistic endeavor where there is some selection process for someone else's sort of gig, you have to realize that sometimes you will not be selected, and it isn't because you aren't talented, and it isn't because you aren't the right person for the role. There's just probably other factors that are at play, and you cannot let that deter you from continuing to move forward, especially things around like money and access and training. Because if you continue to do the work, like you continue to practice, you continue to produce, with time you will just get better. You will improve your skill level and you will get to where you want to be. And I think in the Black community, we really need to highlight Venus's story of perseverance in this case and her work ethic, because even though she took a fucking hard blow, like, she did not get the coach. Her mom is not a tennis player. Her mom doesn't even, I mean, she knew stuff about tennis just from watching for a while, but it was her dad that was doing the training. Out of the blue, overnight, her mom had to become the tennis coach. And her mom, obviously, she's not like a great tennis coach, but Venus is fucking a great tennis player. So eventually, as we move along in the story, the entire family travels to a competition. And it was like a local competition, because they're still tweens at this point. So they're like young people tennis competitions, like just around LA County. Venus ended up enrolling herself. So I think she called before or whatever, and she submitted the paperwork, which, I mean, it makes sense because anybody can compete. These competitions are open for anyone. So she just enrolled herself, and then she ended up winning silver that day, and her sister won gold, but she won silver. And so it was still like, by training on her own and just competing, she still won silver. Hell yeah, Venus, like, gold is great, but silver is something. She took home a fucking medal. Anyway, so They continue to the girls continue to train. Venus continues to train with this coach, and they have this like really big match that is like coming up, and I think it was like an international match or something. I can't remember all the stats around this one match, but the big idea was like, if she does well in this match, she'll get a lot of sponsorships, and she'll be like in a really good place to train pro. So she does really well in this match, and then she asked her and her family have to make this decision where they're like, okay, so we have to pick who we're going to train with for the next few years, because we're going pro, right? So Richard has created a contract. Remember, he's on a 7-year plan. He already knows like what the next level is and everything. So he's written a plan up that includes a whole bunch of shit. Like he's like, we need a single family house that's in the community of the country club. We need access to the country club this often. Every member of my family has to have access to it. We need to be living in this particular school district. So the entire contract, right? Because also you can make a whole ass career out of being a pro tennis player. So coaches who are signing on to like work with you for that realize that you have the potential to make millions and millions of dollars, and they want a piece of that pie. So they're going to they're going to give you sponsorships and give you things because they realize that in the short term they might front $1 million, but the payoff might be like $50 million, right? Because they get a percentage of like your future earnings. So the coach that they want to sign with, he has his own contract. So, he hands it over to them. He's like, okay, here it is. And then Richard's like, he reads it over. He's like, yeah, bro, we already have a contract here. This is what we need. And then he's like, this is a lot. The coach responds back. He's like, this is a lot. I don't know if I can offer this to you. So Richard swiftly says, like, look, we got like 5 other people on the line and we can go take this contract to them, but we want to work with you. So they end up signing it. They basically like move out of the Compton neighborhood into a better neighborhood closer to the country club. The whole family has access to the country club, including Venus. So even though Venus is not training proper with this coach, because she's there all the time and she's still like scrimmaging, she's still playing. Now that she's at the country club, she's scrimmaging with other people who do have like professional coaches and shit, and she actually is getting some time with the coach, like when Venus cannot. But here's the part that I want to really play up. Richard says, I'm not going to allow Venus to compete for like the next 4 years or something. He's like, I need her to have a regular school and youth experience. He basically says, I'm not willing to give up her adolescence for this career, for this sport. And so he enrolls her in school, like she's still practicing after school and stuff, and like she's on a very rigorous schedule, but a parts of that include a regular social life, as in like she has school, she still has homework, she still has responsibilities, chores and stuff. Like none of that stopped. And I think like sometimes some of these like sports kids and other kids get so caught up into like the fame and the Hollywoodness of all of it that they just forget how to live regular lives. And this is like one of the main reasons why I've tried to be like visible through my highs and my lows, because like I'm not some Hollywood kid. No matter how much access that people believe that I have a very real story, right? And I have a very regular life that if other people work hard in the same way that I work hard, in terms of your music, your dance, your modeling, your academics, like whatever pillar that you feel like, okay, I'm going to try to work hard here. If you work hard in those fields, you will succeed in the same way that I succeed. I wasn't a very good engineer when I started. I wasn't a good analyst when I started. I worked really hard. Like, I've had a lot of failures. Like, a lot of people have turned me down and said I suck. But it's kind of like after Facebook says, yeah, you don't suck, now everybody else is like, oh, yeah, she probably not that bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I worked really hard. And you can too. But, like, a failure is a part of the process. In order to succeed, you are for sure going to fail. Like, for sure. So those are actually all of the points that I wrote down. We got through the entire list. And maybe I'll actually just write a more clear piece about the impact and significance of that film. But I did want to record this and share it because, first of all, I realized that everyone does not have an HBO Max subscription. And I realized that there are themes in this film that should be explored. And I want to explore them with you. So I'm going to upload this today. Today's like April 1st. And then when I finish editing it, I'll delete this upload and I will re-upload with the edits that include a lot of the like links, the articles, the other videos that I referenced. So hope you guys like that.